So what we have here is the Drakeo the Ruler's 100-page witness testimony brought to y'all by Respectable Rants. Give them a like, comment, subscribe. The whole 100-page testimony from Drakeo the Ruler's bodyguard to see exactly what happened that unfortunate night where Drakeo lost his life. We about to jump into this content. Without no further ado, let's get into it. Let's go.
In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the testimony and deposition that Drakeo the Ruler's bodyguard Coop would give, but let's dive right into it. Now, as most of us know, LA Times would post an article today saying that Drakeo the Ruler's bodyguard implicated YG having a knife at the scene, and he would also say that YG was part of the melee. But we found the whole entire deposition, so let's dive right into it. One of the first questions they asked would be about the artists that were performing that night, and he would say that he knew that certain artists would be performing after Drakeo performed, and he didn't think it was a good idea, and it was cutting too close to other people's time. And they would ask him, "Who are you referring to?" And he would say an artist called YG. Coop would then tell him, as far as the lineup and the time slots, there was nothing he can do except emphasize to Drakeo that they needed more security. And he would tell him he didn't think that anything would happen before. He felt like something would happen after they were done performing though. And he would say that there was a great chance to run into other artists. And they would ask him, why was that a concern? And he would say, I know that Drakeo and his rap group were indicted on charges. And as far as I know, it was for murdering one of the artist's friends back in the day. And they would ask him, did that situation with one of YG's friends lead to a feud or beef between Drakeo and YG? And he would answer, I'm sure they may have been other things, but as far as I know, yes. And they would ask him, was this widely and
And that's the motive right there. In this situation, it's going to go from bad to worse.
Publicly known? And he would answer yes. They then asked him what he meant by it being publicly known. And he responded, even to this day when I have certain artists I go to clubs with or that are booked for a club that are friends with Drakeo, the club would call him and say, I also have YG who has a table for the night. Are you sure you still want to come? They would then ask him, leading up to the festival, you said you did a lot of research and due diligence. Did you encounter any public information about the feud between YG and Drakeo or the people associated with both camps? And he would answer and say that one night, him and Drakeo were leaving the studio and YG was walking into the studio. YG then walked up to Drakeo and asked what's up with all that internet stuff. He would then say that he had to defuse that situation. They then asked him what was his awareness of what was publicly out there on the internet about their beef or feud. And he would say that there were interviews from both sides, and that artists that YG and Drakeo both signed were associated with the beef. He would then say that it was just so many things, and it was pretty obvious. And if you're into that type of music or genre, then you know what's going on. They would then ask him about any specific songs made in the beef, and he would mention that Drakeo dropped Inglewood in August of 2021. He would then tell him that was a diss song for the whole entire city of Inglewood. He would then say that he knows YG did an interview on No Jumper that was publicly released. He told them it was released in the summer of 2021 and that a lot happened in that 3 to 4 month period. They then asked him who was the interview with, and he would respond and say YG and his two artists. They would then ask him what was said about Drakeo or Drakeo's camp, and he would respond and say that YG said we don't do that internet stuff and that the homie's gonna get you. They would then ask him that based on his knowledge and understanding, what gangs were YG and his crew affiliated with. And he would say the Inglewood families, and I think they're called the Treetop Pyrus. That's what YG claims. They would then ask him, are the Inglewood families a blood or a Crip subset? And he would say bloods. They would then ask him what are the Treetop Pyrus, and he would say they call themselves Pyrus, but they're still bloods. They would then ask him how many passes were given to Drakeo, and he would say 10. They would then ask him about the 10 passes, and he would say 4 videographers, 2 DJs, Drakeo, Ralphie, him, and the last person was a video editor that was a female.
Now, the way that they break the situation down, the way that they explain this, the way that they, pretty much present it is in a way to where, yes, this is right now in a civil suit, but if you don't think criminal charges are coming after this, nigga, you don't want to think. That's all. That's period, point blank. They're setting it up in a civil suit in a way to where should they ever have to set this up, or when they have to, not just if, when they decide to set this up in a legal aspect, what's going to happen? And what's going to happen is they're going to have the easy open and shut case against YG, because if the civil suit goes, then that means that everything this man is saying is true. If that's the case, and that's more than enough information, more than enough evidence to press charges against YG and unfortunately everybody else involved. So, sheesh, this is icky, Mickey, Vicky, sticky, and tricky.
They would then ask him, did any promoters or security companies reach out to Drakeo in the weeks leading up to the festival? And he would respond and say, as far as I know, I was supposed to meet up with a guy named Wack 100, who was supposed to coordinate me with Snoop Dogg. But other than that, I never spoke with anyone about anything other than Drakeo. He's the one that told me I was supposed to meet up with Wack. They would then show him a document and ask him, before today, have you ever seen this? And he would respond, yes, in September of 2023. They would then ask him why did he see it on that occasion, and he would say, yeah, the detective on the case spoke with me about this. They would then ask him, where did you guys first make contact with security? And he would say on Exposition in Bill Robinson Lane. He then said as he approached the security guard, he would roll down the passenger side window, and the first thing the security said to him was, what's up, blood? Draco's security then said that he gave the security guard that said blood a funny look. Then he looked to his right, and he heard Draco say, what the F?
And this is where Live Nations and LAPD will come in, because you wonder, how did they allow these types of people to be security guards to where this could even be a situation?
He would then ask him where do they go next, and he would point to the next checkpoint. They would then ask him to explain for the record what what's up blood meant. And he would say that he felt like it was some sort of intimidation factor because everybody knew the car that Draco drove, and he was in all Draco's videos. And don't forget they drove there in Draco's Rolls Royce Dawn. But he would say before they reached the checkpoint, there were a bunch of cars in front of them. And he would say in hindsight, he knew the guys that were directly in front of them. And he would say that he found out that was YG's camp. And he would say that this is all speculation, but he felt like it was an intimidation factor by them saying, what's up blood, like you're walking into blood territory. They would then ask him, when you guys entered the grounds of Exposition Park, at that point what happened next? And he would say that he saw a group in front of them, they were going through the checkpoint.
And at that point, arguably, is where Draco should have made his exit stage left for sure. But that pride and that ego, man, it's a furthermucker. But he could have lived. Could have lived to fight another day.
They're just talking. And he would say that in comparison to the security at Rolling Loud, he would notice that at this concert, there was no dogs going around the car and nobody got out the vehicle to be searched. And he would say that he was watching the group in front of them and he would notice that nobody was taking out the vehicle to be searched. He would tell him it was about 2 to 3 vehicles in that group and they went past the checkpoint. But when they pulled up next to be searched, they would ask him to get out the vehicle and they would pat his pockets. But he was the only one taken out, and after that, they would allow them to go through. They would then ask him, did there come a time when you saw them cars park and the people exit? And he would respond and say yes, he saw about 10 to 12 people get out the Astro van. But he would say that he didn't see how many got out the other 2 vehicles. They would then ask him if he'd seen the Astro van with 10 to 12 people being searched at.
Now, this situation is in fact going down the way that he describes it. This is a cold, calculated plot to pretty much assassinate this man. You feel me? So the assassination for sure will be a thing, and it would be an easy conspiracy case, kind of open and shut.
Any point, and he would say no, he only seen the driver get out and being pat down. He would then explain how the pat downs, including his, were very, very quick, and they really only checked pockets. They would then ask him if he had to show any passes or any type of identification, and he would say no, they just saw it was Draco, and they let us go. They would then ask him what the 10 to 12 people were wearing, and he would say a lot of red shirts, red jackets, red ski masks, red gloves, red shoes, just everything. And he would tell them they weren't only just wearing red, they were throwing up gang signs with their hands. And he would notice that
Kind of a theme they had going on there.
they were throwing up the B. And he would explain that they were all taking pictures and that there was a cameraman that was standing behind the cars, just taking pictures. And he would say he was watching his surroundings because he knew everybody knew Draco's vehicle. They would then ask him, when he observed the individuals in the van, was it his understanding that that was YG's crew? And he would respond and say yes. They would ask him, entourage or group? And he would say yes, I saw YG, he was in front of everybody taking a picture. As if the group was standing behind him and he was singled out in the front. They then asked him what was YG wearing, and he would tell them a black ski mask, black shiny jacket, black pants with a red stripe going down the side, and black shiny shoes. They would then ask, so the other guys were wearing red, correct? And he would say yes. And as you can see right here, which would be the video of the situation, you can see the clothes that he's describing. But we're gonna dive into that in a little bit. He would then tell them that eventually they parked their vehicles and everybody would gather around. And as they were walking to the gate, Draco turned around to go put something in his vehicle. He would tell them that he forgot what it was, but he believes that it was a bag. And he would say that as they were walking to the vehicle, he would notice that the 400 camp was walking towards them. But he would say that Chief and Heavily also went back to his own vehicle to put something inside of it. But he would say that him and Draco and Chief and Heavily went different ways. He went with Draco, and then Chief and Heavily went in a separate way.
If the Chief and Heavily dude would have just kept up with the crowd, man, who's to say how this situation could have been different? Not to blame him, but damn, nigga, stick with the group.
But as the group regathered, Chief and Heavily would tell him that there was an attempted robbery on his chain. And he would say that after that, Draco said, "What the F? Hell no," and immediately ran back towards the pink lot. Draco's security said that he tried to grab him by his shirt collar, but wasn't able to get him. They would then ask him if he followed Draco to the pink lot. And he would say, "Yes, I immediately tried to grab him." They would then ask him, "Then what happened? Did an altercation ensue?" He would then tell him, "Yeah, but he still wanted to do his job by protecting Draco, and that he didn't want to grab him and fight with him, knowing that all the people were coming towards them." He would then say that the brawl broke out, and he would hit the first person coming towards them. and he would tell him that he also brought a knife in that night, but it was inside of Draco's Rolls Royce. They would then ask him how many people were they fighting, and he would say 20 to 25 people minimum. And they would ask him if he recognized anybody in that group of 25, and he would respond and say, I only recognize one, YG. And they would ask him, so he was directly involved in the fight, and he would say yes, front and center. He would then say how Draco was standing by his side when he was fighting YG and YG's bodyguard, and he would say that YG produced a knife from his left hand. He would then say that when he seen that, he backed up, and Draco was standing by his side the whole time. He would then say that more people began swarming, and they would attempt to fight off while backing up. They would then ask him, so you witnessed YG, who you recognized produced a knife from his sleeve, correct? And he would respond and say yes. And he would say that he just saw the blade.
And that right there could be a fatal statement to YG's freedom. Should that be a true and factual statement? Because, nigga, why are you outside producing blades and weapons of, flu, flammery, skullduggery, and or larceny?
He didn't see the handle, and that it was a silver blade, almost like a shank made in prison. He told them it was about 3 to 4 inches long, and he was slashing it at him. They would then ask him, did he witness any other knives in the melee? And he would say, yeah, there was a guy on the left of YG that had a knife also. And they would ask him to describe the knife, and he would say the same thing. And he would say you can tell they had a knife because nobody swings a punch like how they were doing in the video. And this right here would be the part of the video that they're speaking about. But he would say that in total he saw 3 knives, and the third person was allegedly standing behind YG. They would then ask him again to explain what YG was wearing that night. And he said he had on a black balaclava or a ski mask that just had the eyes, no mouth. But he said from the nose to above the eyebrows were open. But he said he had on a black bomber jacket that was a zip up. And he would say that he was wearing black slacks or maybe track pants with a red stripe going down the side of them. And that he had on black shiny shoes. They would then ask him if he can describe anybody else that was at the scene. And he would explain that a black male that had a bald head that was very, very shiny and had hazel eyes were there. Then he corrected himself and said light brown, not super hazel. And this right here would be the confusion that's going around in the news articles and YouTube videos, where people are saying that he described YG as having hazel eyes. But as you can see right here, he's talking about the bald dude. And he would say that the bald dude was about 5'10" and was wearing blue, like a blue crew neck sweatshirt. And the guy behind him, that's the one with...
Sheesh. Man, it's an awful lot of telling going on, brother. It's an awful lot of telling going on. But at the same time, too, Draco's security guard, just security guard, not a gang member, not a criminal. He's doing what he's supposed to do.
The dreads. And they're allegedly talking about Big CK Chief in this. And he would say that he was around the same height as YG, and YG is about 6'1" or 6'2". And they would ask him, if YG had on a ski mask, how did you recognize it was him? And he would say that he met him a lot. And he would say, I'm not calling him my friend, but let's just say you see somebody a lot, and they put a mask on and walk up to you. You see their feet, and you know it's them. You know. They would then ask him, so you're familiar with his body type, height, size, and demeanor? And he would answer yes to all of them. They would then ask him, so you described 3 men, they all had knives. One was YG, and 2 other people that were with him. What happens next in the melee? He would then say that they were yelling out, oh, this is Draco, this is Mr. Get Dough, this is Mr. Mosley. He would then say that they kept taunting him and saying, what do you want to do? And he would say he also heard people yelling out Sue Whoop and blood. And they would ask him what Sue Whoop or Whoop meant. And he would say that it was a call that the Bloods did to gather up. They would then ask Coop, so they were yelling out, what's up, Bloods and Draco, right? And he would respond and say, yeah, they were also beating on their chest. He would then tell him that there's another gang called BPS, or the Gorilla Stones, and they do that a lot. They'll beat on their chest and yell out Sue Whoop. And he would tell him that the Baby Stone Gorillas is another group that Draco's beefing with. They would then ask, who are the Gorilla Stones? Is that a blood gang? And he would answer, yeah, from that area as well. They would then ask him, near Exposition Park? And he would respond and say correct. They would then ask him, who was Draco beefing with that was related to the Gango group? And he would say, I don't know their names, but it's the artist of the group. They call themselves the Baby Stone Gorillas.
What's your thoughts on that, man? Like, Draco and everything.
It is what it is. J-Side did what J-Side did, and they did what they did. So.
They would then ask him if there was a rapper representing that gang in any way. And Draco was beefing with them, and he would answer yes. And they would ask him, are they affiliated with YG in a gang sense? And he would respond and say yes. They would then ask him to explain what he witnessed when Draco was stabbed. And he would tell him that he did not witness the Draco stabbing. And he would say he didn't see him actually get stabbed. But once police came in and broke everything up, he was able to turn back to that direction and notice that Draco was holding his neck. He said he then ran up to Draco yelling his name, but Draco didn't respond. He would then say that he noticed that blood was coming out of Draco's neck, and he would take off his own scarf and try to wrap Draco up with it, and that he stood by Draco's side until the ambulance took him away. They would then ask...
And the fact that this is first-hand eyewitness testimony, it's gonna be real hard for them niggas to get around this one.
Asked him to walk them through the process when he got to the hospital. And he said when he first arrived, the first encounter that he had was all of Draco's friends, and they were apologizing to him. They would then ask him, why was Draco's friends apologizing? And he would say, they were trying to convince me that they didn't run, and that they were right there the whole time. He then said that he waited outside to get an answer if Draco made it or not. And unfortunately,
them niggas ran. If it shows sound like they ran.
Drakeo the Ruler didn't make it. But this deposition would be from a few years back. And last month, YG dropped a song called We Know the Truth, where he addresses the rumors and said he had nothing to do with it. And as we all know, 2 days ago, YG was detained and his property was searched in connection with the homicide of Drakeo the Ruler. But if YG can prove that he was not wearing them clothes that night, then it's safe to say that he's probably off the hook. But let me know what you guys think about the situation in the comments.
Having to prove your wardrobe 5 years ago was wild. But that all being said, man, big shout out to Respectable Rants. Get him a like, comment, subscribe, red dots to the left, you know the rest. We are gone.